Hello and welcome to Color with Kendi. So in today's video, I am going to be doing a detailed demonstration of the different brushes in the ink and color set. So the ink and color set can create a variety of different looks, and I wanted to walk you through all of the brushes. If you've already purchased the set and you want to follow along, just open up the brush tutorial canvas after you've imported it into Procreate. So what you will see in this canvas is there's already a paper texture, and all of the brushes will be listed on different layers, and we're just going to go through the brushes and test them out together. You don't have to test out the brushes with me, you can just watch this, and hopefully you'll gain a few tips and tricks and be able to utilize these brushes a lot better for your work. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, make sure that you are on the Pen and Inkers 1 layer. And here I'm going to show you 4 different inkers. These are brushes that I would use for line art. So I'm going to go to the ink and color set, and you will see the micron pen. We're going to start here, work our way down, and these are all bonus brushes. I will be talking about them a little bit later. So the first one, let's just tap on it. It's the micron pen. And grab a pretty dark color. It doesn't need to be quite black. So I have a very, very dark color, dark gray. And let's zoom in and I'll show you what this pen looks like. So this is at its medium size. So I just wanted to point out that all of my brushes come with these preset sizes that you can just tap on. And these are the sizes that I typically use these brushes at. But that doesn't mean you can't slide it and use it at a different size. This just makes my life easier because I use these brushes at these sizes the most, but feel free to change it. So at the middle preset size, that's what that brush looks like. I'm going to show you when you go a little bit bigger. It looks a bit different. So if I zoom in, you'll see that there's a little bit of texture, kind of like ink bleeding into the paper. So it's not a smooth edge, it's not meant to be. And I would suggest using this brush at these sizes. When it's a bit bigger, it's not ideal for line work. And this brush, no matter how hard you press, the line does not get thicker. It's just the same width across. So that's the micron pen. Now let's move on to the smooth inker. And this is a preset size here. And this brush is pressure sensitive. When I use very light pressure, do you see I'm getting thin lines? But when I use heavy pressure, I get much thicker lines. And what you will see as well is there is a little bit of a taper. But to get that taper, you need to lift your pencil off the screen as you make your stroke. If you don't lift, that's what it will look like. So just lift your pen off the screen, your pencil off the screen to get that taper. And this is great for line art. Then we have the wet inker. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to use the larger size. And this is pressure sensitive. I'm using light pressure, but now when I use heavy pressure, you get a very, very different look. So vary the pressure and you'll get quite an interesting look. So this is a brush that has a little bit of that bleed, like it's really wet ink that's bleeding into the paper. And it will look a little bit different at a smaller size. So if you don't want that much of the bleed, just use it at a smaller size. So with all my brushes that are pressure sensitive, the size that you use it at really does matter. It will make quite a big difference in how the brush appears. Now let's move on to Textured Inker A. Textured Inker A, I'm using the largest size. This is also pressure sensitive. When I apply heavy pressure, you get much thicker lines, but when I apply light pressure, you get thinner lines. So you get quite a bit of this texture in the middle, and at a smaller size, it's quite different. So if you're someone who wants a little bit of texture to work, nothing too much, not like that, I would use this brush at a smaller size. So that covers the first 4 brushes. I would use all of these for line art, and I would use them in different instances depending on the illustration. So now I'm going to go back to the layers panel. I'm going to turn off pen and inkers. I'm going to tap on pen and inkers 2 and turn it on. So So now let's talk about the next 4 brushes. So go back here. Let's grab Textured Inker B, and I'm going to use the largest preset size here. This is size 15. I'm going to zoom in. This is also something you can use for line art. And when you use light pressure, you get quite a different look compared to heavy pressure. So this is quite pressure sensitive. I would say out of all of the inkers, it's one of the most pressure sensitive in terms of the texture. So you can vary it up to create quite an interesting look. Then we have Rough Inker A. I absolutely love this brush because it's got that knobbly look. I don't know how else to explain it. So it's cool. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of those old vintage ink pens, especially when you use it at a smaller size. It's got quite an interesting texture. Now, if that's too much texture for you, there is a Rough Inker B. Whenever there's an A and a B brush, they're kind of similar, but there is a big enough difference for them to be 2 separate brushes. So now Rough Inker B, same concept. It is pressure sensitive. When you apply more pressure, you get a thicker line. But as you can see, it's not as textured in terms of the edges compared to this one. So choose the inker that works well for your illustration. Sometimes this will work better, sometimes this one will work better. So the old inker is very much a pressure sensitive brush that's using medium pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. And it's really fun. This is really a great brush for more expressive work. Okay, so now I'm going to open up the layers panel and go to the stipple and splatter layer. Going to tap on the stipple helper. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in. So there's 2 ways to use the stipple helper. One is just to kind of use it to create dots. Just tap anywhere on the screen, but that's not really what this was intended for. The main thing is to use it this way, where you are putting your pencil on the screen and moving your pencil up and down and not releasing it, and it will create the stipple effect. And every time you do it, it will look a little bit different depending on how you move your pencil across the screen. So you can create quite fun stipple effects with this brush. Then let's move on to the ink splatter. This is one of my favorites, and this is a very pressure sensitive brush. So at low pressure, you get really, really tiny splatters, but now I haven't changed the size, I'm at the same size. With high pressure, just look, much bigger splatters. And I would vary the pressure, start off a little low and then go a little bit higher, play around, and you'll create very different splatters every single time, which is really fun. Okay, now let's go back to the layers panel and I'm going to show you the washi and watercolor brushes. I'm going to turn that layer on. And for this, let's go with a color. It's just much more fun. So what color? Let's choose a blue. You can choose any color that you want if you're following along. Let's talk about the washi background brush. So you can use this at different sizes, of course, but I'm using it at the preset size. I'm going to zoom in. And with this brush, what you want to do is start off with low pressure. When you start off with low pressure, you'll get a very light wash. And you can move your brush around. And now, if you want more color, just go in with a little bit more pressure. And you can create a very interesting look just by varying your pressure. So I'm going to show you if I only use light pressure and medium pressure, that would be what it would look like. But because I use higher pressure, I got a slightly different result. Now let's move on to the textured watercolor brush. This one I'm going to use at its preset size. I'm going to zoom in a bit. And this is great for coloring in areas with a relatively flat watercolor look. So that's what that would look like. Now, because this is a watercolor brush, if you lift your pencil and you apply your pencil on the screen again, you are going to get that. Because watercolor is transparent, and when you apply 2 transparent layers together, you're going to get that kind of overlap because it is meant to mimic watercolor. So if you don't want that effect, you can color your object without lifting your pencil. And this brush, you can use it at any size. You will get quite a nice watercolor look with some subtle variation, but it is a relatively flat color. Now, if I were to use the pigmented version of this, you would see a lot more pigment. So this is much lighter. This is going to be much darker. Now let's move on to the best brushes in this set, the most fun, the dual color magic brushes. So let's turn that on. The dual color magic brushes are watercolor brushes that require you to select 2 different colors for you to use them properly. So you can go to your color menu and make sure that you are in disc mode. And what you will see here is 2 different colors. To illustrate these brushes, I'm going to use 2 very different colors, but typically I would use colors that are a bit similar. But you can use any 2 colors you want. Some may work well together, some may not. So I'm going to keep that darker blue. And you see this color here? I'm going to change that. So I'm going to tap on that. And maybe I will make it quite a vibrant red, reddish purple. And then I'm going to tap again on that blue to make it my main color, so that it knows that that's my main color. And now I'm going to go to Dual Color Magic A. And I'm going to use actually maybe the largest size, the largest preset size. I'm going to zoom in here. So I'm starting off with low pressure, and you're seeing more of the blue. And don't lift your pencil, keep moving, and then start to apply a little bit more pressure and vary it. So a little harder and a little softer, and then lift off the screen. You're going to have to try this brush out several times to get the hang of it, but it is quite easy and quite fun once you get the hang of it. And what you will see is that it will mix the 2 colors for you. You see that purple there is a mix of those 2, and then you'll see a lot of the second pigment wherever you applied higher pressure. So I'm going to show you this one again, and you will create different looks with this every single time. So I'm applying low pressure. I'm keeping my pencil on the screen, but I'm still moving. And now I am applying a little bit more pressure, but then I'm releasing some of that pressure and then moving my pencil off the screen. And you will see that it's a bit different from the first one. Now, the trick with these brushes is to avoid doing this. So now I'm going to show you again. So let's say I did that and then I applied the heavy pressure. But now look, it's too heavy. You need to vary the pressure. When it's too heavy, you're just going to get that second color. You're not going to see the first color. And the other thing which happened, it says edit polyline. That means that I didn't move my brush around enough. So if you ever see that, that means that you need to keep moving your brush while you're applying the pigment to the screen. Now let's move on to Dual Color Magic B. I'm using the same colors as before. I'm going to zoom in. Same concept. Start off with low pressure. Fill that shape. Keep moving your brush and then start to vary up the pressure. Light in some areas, heavy, and then lift your pencil. And you'll get a slightly different look. As you can see, the texture of this is a bit different from the texture of this one. And if I repeat this, I can create a very different look. Now, Dual Color Pencil C. Again, same 2 colors. Low pressure. And now I'm starting to bring in high pressure, but then I'm releasing some of the pressure and then I'm lifting the pencil off the screen and I'm creating that look. Now, if I switch the colors, as in if I clicked on this color and then made that my primary, I'll show you it's going to look quite different. Do you see? That's become my primary color, and now when I apply pressure, I see more of the blue. So that's basically how the dual color brushes work. It's a little bit tricky when you get started, but you will get the hang of it and you will have so much fun using them. Now let's move on to the sketch and eraser brush. So there's 2 sketch brushes that come in the set, the rough sketch and the inky sketch. I'm going to show you with a dark color. These are the bonus brushes. This is something that I love to use for sketching, and depending on how much pressure you apply, you will get a slightly different look. It has much more of a pencil-y look. And then we have the inky sketch brush if you prefer a brush that is a little bit darker and has less texture than a pencil for sketching. And if you use it at a slightly larger size, you will see that it has a little bit of inbuilt texture. Now I wanted to show you the huge eraser brush. So the huge eraser brush is meant to be used with the eraser tool, and it's good for erasing large areas where you don't want to erase everything off the screen with 3-finger swipe, which is the gesture for erasing everything, but you want to erase a big portion. So tap on that so it's selected, then tap and hold the eraser tool and it will erase with that brush. And it's really good to erase large areas of the screen, but not erase everything. So I wanted to keep those two intact and didn't want to erase them. Now I'm going to go back to the brush menu and let's talk about the edge eraser. But I think to show the edge eraser in its best light, I should probably paint with a textured watercolor brush. So I'm going to paint an area and then I'm going to go to the edge eraser and then do the same thing. Tap and hold, and it will erase with the edge eraser. So do you see there is quite a bit of texture on the edges? If I erased with the huge eraser brush, you would lose that texture. If you want to retain that texture and some texture, it's not exactly going to be the same, but if you want to retain some texture, the edge eraser brush is the way to go, rather than using this one. If I use that one, and even at a smaller size, it would be a very clean edge, which doesn't look very natural. Now let's talk about the smudger. So I'm going to tap on the smudger layer and let's get smudging. So before we smudge, should probably color in an area. I'm going to go with the washy background brush. I'm going to go in with this color, paint that in, and then maybe go in with this color and paint that in. And now I want to smudge this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that smudger brush, which is meant to be used with the smudge tool. So I've selected it, tap and hold, and it will smudge with that brush. You can make this a bit bigger if you'd like. And I'm smudging outwards to move the pigment in to the pink. And if you don't want to move the pigment into the pink, let's say I want the pink to move more into the blue, just change the direction in which you're smudging. So now I'm smudging more of the pink in. So the direction in which you smudge really makes a difference. Now this is smudging on top of the washy background brush. Now I do want to point out that if you are using the smudger on the textured watercolor brush, so I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to color in an area with the texture watercolor brush, and then another. And then go back to the smudger. So what you're seeing here is a loss of texture. Now to avoid that, I have a little trick for you. So I'm going in with a textured watercolor brush. I have picked a green. I'm going to draw a very simple leaf. Color that in, and let's say I want to add a little bit of yellow to it. I'm not going to do it in the same layer. I'm going to do this in a different layer on top. Add some yellow. It looks quite ridiculous right now, but trust me, it will look fine once you smudge it. And then I'm going to smudge it. So now you get this nice effect, this watercolor effect where there's pigment, there's yellow that's bleeding, but you still retain the texture underneath. So this is how I would do it. I would do it in 2 different layers. So that's the trick. Now there is also a paper texture canvas that comes with this set. I'm not going to explain how to use it in this video. I have another video where I explain how to use a paper texture canvas as well as a paper texture brush. I hope this video gave you a good overview of how to use the brushes, and I'm hoping to put a few simple tutorials like this bird that you can follow along with me and really see the brushes in action, creating an illustration together. And if you have any questions about this brush set, don't leave them in the comments because I don't always get to the comments. I do want to answer all your questions, so send me an email. And my email is on my website, and it's also in the description and the pinned comment, and that way I will make sure to reply to you. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye!